get the reference.
You got it. Hey, everybody. We are on, and I'm proud to present my friend, Bobbi López. And, that's actually the first time we met in face-to-face, in a sense, even if it's cyber. So it's really so cool. But she is the creator of a piece of legislation that I believe, if used, can save Oakland businesses and the homeless situation. And that's called AB464. Take it away, Bobbi, and tell my viewers about it.
Yeah, so I work for an agency called Build Affordable Faster California, which is a project of an affordable housing provider called TODCO. TODCO has actually been in the Bay Area for 50 years. We're about to have our 50th anniversary this year, and we'll definitely make sure to do an invite, Zenny. And, to be very frank and honest, my boss, John Oberlin, has for many years been doing we've passed a lot of different legislations over the years, mostly in San Francisco, even though he was born in Oakland and I live in Oakland. We've been very San Francisco centric. And so we've been expanding more into regional thinking, and we expanded this past year doing statewide work. Now, one of the things we were pushing and are still pushing is the idea of a wealth tax. Now, wealth tax, even though it pulls really well across the state, it's a hard sell right now with our state legislature. So, my boss was really thinking about what other things can we do, because given the pandemic, we just really need a large investment into our small business, into our housing, into our infrastructure to really kind of make sure we don't go into an economic recession or even worse, a depression. So what can we do that would sell with a state legislature that is very afraid of new taxes? I mean, you talk about no new taxes. Right now, that's our state legislature. Even though they poll extremely well, 68%, 70%, and we've pulled the wealth tax multiple times, and it does really well. Millionaire tax also does well, but it is what it is in terms of where we're at in terms of our electeds at the state level. And so, really, I have to credit John with this idea where he was like, what can we do there that can bring money and investment to our communities? And, and we talked about redevelopment, and redevelopment, has a long history in the Bay Area. I know a lot of folks, and it definitely has a very legitimate history to criticize. And I know there's a lot of concerns with it, but there are definitely some tools that were used in redevelopment that we can actually bring under community control and replicate in a way that's helpful. One thing folks don't realize with redevelopment is when it stopped, yes, and there were cities definitely abusing it. There's no doubt about that. But when it stopped, we lost our local stream of affordable housing money. Like, it's not like one day to the next, the money started disappearing. And now we're feeling that, right? We're our homeless. I mean, there's multiple reasons why we have a homeless crisis, but definitely the lack of that funding coming in is a factor. And, in 2014, when the EIFD bill was written initially, it reflected on the possibility of using this mechanism to bring back money into affordable housing, to bring back money into infrastructure, to do the good things that redevelopment did. And so John had this really amazing idea. And, at first I wasn't sure. I had worked in San Francisco for Supervisor Jane Kim. So we had done that, IRFD at Treasure Island. I'd worked on the very, very tail end of the Giants Mission project. So I'm very familiar with tax increment financing tools, and we can explain that if that's what your viewers want. You can explain it too, because I know you have a background in this. So even though I am supposed to be talking, I actually would love to hear you too on your thoughts on this.
Okay.
Because
later. This is you.
Later. So we thought, okay, and actually this is why we passed our bill through consent. I mean, we have another 2 bills we're working on still at the state that are struggling, and it's just a really hard year. A lot of people put forward really important bills. We tried to help the city of Oakland with the bill on tax lien property, and it got killed right away. So it's been a really, really rough year for bills at the state. And so we were very lucky. And I think part of it is that, for the Republicans, it was very important to hear that there wasn't new taxes, that there was local control. And they loved it for that. And then the Democrats got it right away. We got the support of the Democratic Party, because the people who know the possibility of this tool. Now, I'm going to be very honest with you, Zenny, it's completely underutilized. And I think that's the big thing that now that we got this bill passed, and we got it passed unanimously, and thank you so much, Governor Newsom, for signing this bill. It's like actually making it happen, implementing it, and showing and choosing a couple cities, or starting with one city and using it as an example of how other cities can use it for good. right? And so really, I'm now a very big true believer in this bill. I mean, I knew all this because Treasure Island, it's 8,000 homes. The affordable housing, close to, I think, $1 billion towards the end, is going to go towards affordable housing construction. So I know the value of tax increment, and I know the value. And I'm realizing this is how you plan, and, it's designating geographical areas that need support and doing those investments back to those geographic areas. So I think there's a lot of potential for what we can do with this bill. I know that we're excited to really implement it so that it can be used across the state. And I should explain what the bill does. I haven't even done that. So AB464, what it does a couple of things. It may seem very small, but it's actually big. So there's a list of things that you can use. And so first of all, EIFD means Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. I call it EIFDs because who wants to say that many words? And EIFDs are basically a financing mechanism, right? Using tax increment, right? So you have base tax, and then you do you figure out a year and go off a base year and do the increment above that. And you use that increment to fund like capital projects. And what this bill did is expand that list of capital projects. And what it expanded to was two very big things: to construct, repair commercial structures that have a nexus to the COVID pandemic, so that there's a long-term sustainability for a small business. And then also allows the use of this money for nonprofit community organizations that do health, youth, homeless, and social services. That's very broad, actually. But I think that's good. And the way that we wanted to make that broad is because, people may want to do just an EIFD for small business, or they may want to do a complete community. And a complete community isn't just housing. You need your social services, you need your small businesses. And so that's what our vision is that whether you want to do it specifically to a small business EIFD or to a complete community, this is how it helps you. And so basically it extends the categories for what this money can be used for. And with that, as far as I can tell, it's one of the first small business bills that got passed in this cycle, right? And you can really just help small businesses that are really failing. And we know that. We see that every day in Oakland and San Francisco and the whole Bay Area. Small businesses are struggling. And the possibility of another lockdown is always kind of out there. And so I think that we need to strategize about the long-term sustainability, because right now it's, and also changing patterns in purchasing because of the pandemic. There's so many factors to keep in mind. And I commend all the city governments across the region who have put money aside for small business. I know a lot of them are waiting for more money to come down from the state. But at the end of the day, I mean, I heard you say this in your video before, like, if you run a small business, and my family in Mexico has a small business, like the sustained amount of money you need multi-year to do that, to make it happen, it can add up, So I appreciate all of the governments across the Bay doing and making those investments, but why not create a streamline of money, right? A regular stream of money that's dedicated to that. Anyway, I have talked enough. I actually want to hear from you, Zenny.
I'm really excited because my history of redevelopment goes back to 1986, when I was hired by the city of Oakland by Pat Cashman and Jeff Chu to work. And my first job was basically clearing large and small pipes off of what we now call the zone property across the Coliseum for what they wanted was big box retail. And I've discovered that Ezra Rapport was actually working behind the back of the EB Mud property manager, because I went through it. And so he gave me another assignment, calling me an energetic intern and saying, okay, I want you to come up with an economic argument for why we should not build a wet weather storage facility at a crescent where I-880, 80, and the Bay Bridge entrance and 580 meet. And I did, based on a straw person setup that was actually turned out to be intentional for a big box retail, hotel, and office. The memo that I wrote at Ezra's behest became the Best Buy that you probably visited in Emeryville.
Oh yeah, it's down the street from me.
Yeah. So then they gave me, Ezra says, wow. So he says, I want you to do the same thing for the Coliseum redevelopment survey area. And I said, okay. So I went to the Cal Library Bolt and I read about from section 3300 to 33999 about redevelopment. And I basically memorized every single line of code. And I used that to build my model. And so I went back to, as I rolled out this whole sheet of paper, which was the model, and he was blown away. So he started feeding me. We became this scenario planning and testing operation between the two of us. And that's how I got started with that whole thing. And so I was asked to do something I felt was unethical. I want to get into that. I was hired by Kofi Barner, who was my classmate at Cal, who was running the redevelopment agency at Emeryville, did the same thing for him for tax increment financing, did the same thing for the city of San Francisco, did it for a number of private firms, and then I started my own media company. Then Elihu Harris hired me as his economic advisor. And so that was the backbone of what I was doing for him between 96 to 99, when I also did a number of things like formed the Oakland Downtown Coalition to fix the 14th and Broadway project that was tied up and mired in politics. So going go on and on and on. But I've done thousands of tax increment financing calculations. For anybody watching who wants to know how it works, it's like this. Bobbi and I say, hey, look, we want to improve. We want to have money that goes to businesses in Oakland. So we know that there are 11 business improvement districts. They're already outlined. So we're going to get the assessed value for all of those. And that's going to be our base year assessed value. Okay. So what happens is that base year assessed value, we then say for tax to calculate tax increment. First of all, when we do that, that money, that dollar that normally goes to BART, AC Transit, EB Mud Flood Control, the city of Oakland, the school district, and the county of Alameda goes to one redevelopment or agency that we are supposed to establish as the city of Oakland. Okay. And then that money is collected with the idea of floating bonds against a pre-calculated stream. You don't wait for the stream to grow. Anybody tells you to wait for the stream to go has no idea what they're talking about. They don't understand math, okay? Because every stream that you calculate, you have to say, all right, I'm going to use a 2-to-1 debt coverage ratio. What does that mean? It means that basically if you work backward, you basically say, look, if I'm going to get $2 of revenue, that means I have $1 of bond power. All right, that's the way that works. It's a very simplistic way of thinking about it, okay? But at any rate, when you get that bond money, it should be done for a set of plans that you and the county and BART and AC Transit have already done. Why? Because you want not just the increment, but the base year. And you're going to say, Zinni, what do you mean? It's like this. Base year assessed value, let's say that's at $1, right? That means that all the other the usual suspects, BART gets their money, school district gets its money, which is 40%. County gets 15%, so on, all right? But what happens is this. If we say we're only going to use the increment, which grows like this, like a conic, like a triangle, we get that little bitty slivers there. We have to sort of wait for it before we can bond, all right? You know how you get rid of that? You go to the taxing agencies, you go to the county early on. You don't wait until a year. You go early on and say, hey, you know what? We want to plan with you how to use this money. We need your money up front. Let's take Howard Terminal as an example of where the big problem is, okay?
Yeah.
What's going on with Howard Terminal is they're going to take that increment. They want to. It starts at $893,000 for the first year, assuming the stadium clocks in at roughly $2 billion. Roughly $2 billion.
Yeah.
The stadium clocks in at roughly $2 billion in assessed value, okay? If it does that, okay? And then we say, all right, we're going to use that base year, and at that base year for hours, and we go from 893,000 in the Howard Terminal case to $20 million the first year. That's a huge difference. That $20 million allows you to significantly pay for a significant bond debt. All right. And then as it grows, you can get a serial bond with bonds at different maturity rates. And guess what? You can wind up with a bond issue that is roughly at $1,400,000,000 for a total revenue take at Tower Terminal of $2.6 billion. All right. That's how powerful it is if you know what you're doing. If you don't, it's like we're going to like nickel and dime your way. Okay. That's the wrong way to do it. And that's why we have in Oakland, we've never done it the way I'm talking about, Bobby. But if you look at Las Vegas with the Raiders, when they looked at their hotel subsidies, they did one big bond issue at $645 million. All right. We've also done big bond issues for other projects in Oakland. We haven't done them when it came to building a public project like a convention center or stadium, and we haven't done it with respect to helping small businesses. What you have passed, what you did basically is you made clear what I've been screaming about for my entire career, which is this. Hey, you know what? We could take section 33678 subdivision B of the California Health and Safety Code, design a redevelopment plan around that, and use that money for businesses and services like security guards and everything else. You know what Henry Gardner told me when we talked about this years ago? I think like Henry and I had this conversation 17 years ago. He said, we use that money to remove crack houses in East Oakland. All right. So we've done it before. We have it. And the problem, the biggest problem of all, Bobby, is that I'll be 60 next year, August 4th. The people who are in those positions now don't talk to folks like me. They make snide remarks about folks like me, but they don't talk to us. And some of us are dying, okay? We know this stuff like the back of our hand and their hand combined. The city currently does not have the intellectual horsepower to do this right. I'm saying that I've said it before, and I'll say it again, all right? If anybody wants to take me on, because that's what I'm begging for. I'm begging for a challenge. You know why? Because at the end of the day, the public benefits from having an honest, open discussion and the right planning to help the hundreds of thousands of people in Oakland that directly and indirectly need the help. And that's why I'm so happy that what you've done has passed, because it basically breaks the logjam. All right. It breaks that intellectual logjam where somebody can say, well, the law doesn't really fit. And this, you might have seen this legal loophole, but we might get sued and all this. Forget it. You have taken that away and opened up the floodgates, if it's used, for small businesses left and right to be helped, and also for ones that are popular to be revived.
Yeah. And actually, there's so many different points that you just made that we could go in different directions. San Francisco had the IFD with the Giants and then the IRFD with the Treasure Island. And I think one of the reasons it was easier is because it was a county and a city in one. And it's interesting what you're talking about right now, because that's actually the governor's office came out with a report in February about EIFDs. And in their report, that was actually their top recommendation, is that the state actually needed to help get involved so that cities and counties and taxing entities can actually be collaborating with each other to figure out how to do this work. Because EIFD can be held by just the city of Oakland, but you and I both know that it's so much more money if you include the other taxing entities in the region. And so I think that there's a piece there that the governor's report spoke to that I think we need to address, and will be a challenge in Oakland, but it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity to bring these folks together to figure out this issue. There's another point that I wanted to address, and I was trying to take notes, is that yes, most of the EIFDs have been used for like stadiums or metro links or big infrastructure projects, but there's only been 5 EIFDs. And it's produced about 38,000 units of housing. I can't remember if it was 48. I think it was 38,000 units. So there's a lot of housing capacity that can come out of this, and affordable housing. Since I work at an affordable housing agency, my number one issue would be, along with small business, because, that's really who needs the help right now, is real. And that's how you build your economic base. I mean, this, I don't need to say that, but those are the two things I really think we need right now in the city. Is housing at income levels for low and middle income people. I mean, basically anybody who makes under 150K is screwed. They're just screwed right now out of home ownership opportunities, out of the ability to accumulate and make wealth. There's not the opportunity there. And how could we use that for this? How can we use this for small businesses? I mean, somebody commented on my thread on Facebook, and I think it's a really good point. You know, like, Jeffrey, Pete's and Jeffrey's and places that have such historic value. Like how we need to think outside the box because we want to preserve them, right? Like I was in the San Francisco working during the .com era, and it was really hard to have institutions of 25, 30 years just like not be able to do that. And we don't want us to be that right now. Like we don't want to lose some of our institutions in Oakland. And so I think that while I commend a lot of our leadership for putting money towards small business, here's an opportunity to really bring in a stream. And yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Because it's really heartfeltly embarrassing to have a council member brag about having just $300,000 for small business that they've given out. I thought, are you kidding me? I would never put that in a press release, let alone an email, given that we have 44,000 small businesses in Oakland. And if you think about a $10,000 grant or a loan, that money dries up like, boom, it's gone. It's like 0.0000009% of what our needs are when you start calculating it out. And what people don't get is our needs are in the not tens of millions. When you consider small business in Oakland and what we need to make this go, they're in the hundreds of millions. It's that big. And what I fear, and I'm fighting tooth and nail to advocate against, is that we don't get caught up in how big a number is. Just do it. I hear too many people. This started 6-7 years ago. If someone said, well, that's a big number. It doesn't matter. It's the number. Just do it. There's so many things we have changed and where we actually have regressed, that it just, as you can tell by my gesticulations, has driven me crazy.
Well, and I'm probably about to get in trouble with the next comment I make, but I mean, the city of Oakland has limited resources. It really does. Having come from working in San Francisco and then working to Oakland, it was like, oh my God, it was much easier to do the budget in San Francisco. You can come up with an idea and a dream and a project and make it happen like that. And there's something really powerful. And that's why San Francisco has all these like cutting edge programs. It can afford to fund them, right? That doesn't mean Oakland doesn't have cutting edge ideas and people. Actually, it has a ton, but it's like the funding is frequently not there. And this is a frustration I have, and this is the unpopular thing, is that I feel this real disconnect having worked within the city with the county. Like, I feel like this county is this entity that has no interaction with us as a city. And it hurts us, because when you had a city and county where you could just do things, and then you have this sort of dysfunction with a city and a county here, it hurts Oakland. So either way, if it's a city AFD might be way more limited than if it's a city and a county and then other entities, right? They'll bring in a lot more money. And so I just think that my hope is that really there needs to be some county leadership, because that's where a lot more money is to really push something like this forward. Though, of course, it has to have the participation of a geographic area, whether that's a city, multiple cities, whatever it may be. I mean, it could be East Oakland, it could be downtown, it could be, I mean, you could do an EAFD for the whole city if you wanted to, right? Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Sunny.
The way to square that circle is to plan with them, to just get in a room. I don't care if it's a virtual room, and plan block by block, address by address, where the money goes, and basically say to the county, hey, look, we need your money, but in turn, we want to plan with you. All right. It's not just right.
Exactly.
And that's what with Howard Terminal, reason why Howard Terminal is so much far behind. The city of Oakland wasted a year not doing that, hired a project manager who has no idea how redevelopment, taxing, and financing works. And then they hired these consultants that are basically taking your watch and telling you what time it is. I'm sorry. It's like the Keystone Cops. Okay. And nothing is getting done. And someone's got to call that out. And I am, because the mechanism that's being screwed up is the very mechanism that you have helped save. Because there's even talk of, well, is this worth doing? It is worth doing. It's more than worth doing. And you were talking about Oakland not having money. I can tell you there was a time when Oakland did have money because we had borrowed from a redevelopment agency, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and you raise another point, Zenny, that's very important to me, which is I feel that, I believe that EIFDs and tax infrastructure financing as a concept is getting very muddled in the Howard Terminal. And very honestly, I'm not involved. I'm starting to pay attention now. But there's this vision of it being this terrible thing. It's a tool. It's a tool. It's a tool that can be used for good. It's a tool that can be used not for good. But there's an opportunity to use it. It's concerning what I'm hearing around it, like, oh, this is terrible. EIFDs are terrible. Tax increment is terrible. No, it could be a very effective tool for the things we care about.
Bobbi,
community agencies. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
The city of Oakland screwed it up. And Nancy Skinner, I love her, but she sat back and sort of let them do it because they're out there. November 20th. I think I told you this on the phone before. The bears repeating. November 20th, November 20th, 2019. I'm at the town hall that was held by Oakland councilmember, now council president Nikki Fortunato Bass, and Carl Chan was there, my longtime friend, people from the city administrator's office. They did not want me to tell the 90 citizens that attended about the $1.4 billion possible throw off from the land that they were preparing to use for the enhanced infrastructure financing district. Okay. And I said, why? And they said, well, let's have lunch and talk about it. I said, well, what? But that's one thing. Why are you hiding it? I put out as far back as 2017 that the product that I said the A's were going to get a subsidy from the city of Oakland that was double what the Raiders got from Clark County in Las Vegas. And that's true. All right. The A's are the sole beneficiary of it because they're buying the land. So what does it make it? If you and I say, hey, look, we're going to engineer a bond issue for the A's, it makes it a private activity bond. By its nature in California law, private activity bonds have to be covered by the developer, period. Instead of saying that, the city is like going to do these contortions like, well, we got to do it in EI to do the community, and it's kind of like they tie up and it's not. And I'm watching, I say, are you kidding me? It ain't complicated, really. You can explain it simply. Say to the county, hey, look, we're going to take some of your money, but that $232 million we're going to take from you, guess what? You tell us where you want to spend it. School district, you want special schools, we'll put them there because Howard Terminal is not big enough to have all that stuff, that land, that's the A's land. Instead, they let the A's say, oh, we're going to use a Melrose, overlay. I said, are you kidding me? You cannot get a smooth stream from Melrose like you can property tax revenues. You just can't. The math doesn't work, And so the craziness that I've heard out of this is just absolutely, as you can tell, driven me out of my mind.
I feel the passion coming across the screen, Zenny, that's for sure. And I'm not as familiar with the Howard Terminal, though I'm starting to pay attention because obviously it's.
What I do with Howard Terminal is that they could take that money. I told Keith, I told Lauren, Oakland Councilmember Lauren Terry of District 6, I said, you can use that to clean up that sea level rise problem we're talking about, right? Down there in East Oakland. I said, what are you guys doing with this like faux comparison, like what's downtown versus East Oakland? Give me a break. Read SB 293 Skinner. And guess what? Molly Mayburn, who's the project manager, says, well, we're not going to use that. I about had a baby. I say, you kidding me? You're going to throw that out there? You don't even know what the whole thing says. You haven't read it. And the number of people who have read the thing out of the total is like comparing the destructive power of an H-bomb to that of a kitchen match. Most people don't even read it. Then they come up with their own assumptions about it. Steve Lowe did that. I said, don't call me anymore, Steve. I mean, you're my friend, but, read the thing. Have you read it? Nope. He's on the community committee.
Oh, Zenny. Well, but you and I both agree on one thing, which is that these IAFDs can be a good thing for small business. I mean, my dream would be also having like a small biz dash affordable housing EIFD with home ownership and with rent opportunity. You're gonna love this. That's something we could do, right? And go for it, Zenny. Go for it.
Because of the fact that we've had the pandemic and we have all these great online tools for meeting and everything. People work out of their houses. Do you realize that now your house is your office?
Well, I'm actually in my office.
Yeah. So, right. So guess what? We have the situation to make absolutely certain that thanks to your EIFD, home live work gets assistance like it has never received before. See?
You're right. That's actually a next step idea, which is, and that's the other recommendation that came out of the governor's report. So Zenny, funny thing is, like, you're almost saying word for word what the governor's report is saying about what needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, I've only known Gavin since '98, so.
So did you secretly write that report? But seriously, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and for me, it would be, obviously we need state financing in the early years, right? And that was a big conversation I had at the state level with some of the analysts, is they're like, yeah, this is great, but because you're specifically looking to help COVID specific businesses, how do you do it right off the bat? It's like, well, you do it by having, matching or some sort of finances from the state that then, the TIF, the EIFD can cover, right? And so I think that there's ways to be really creative, and I think that there is opportunity, and I've started getting phone calls from folks on this bill, which is really exciting. And we are talking to a legislator in the Bay Area next week. So I'm hoping that I'm hoping that my goal is implementation, right? To show that it isn't just a bill that looks nice. Like, you can use it for good. You can use it for affordable housing. You can use it for small businesses, and the small businesses that we care about, right? In San Francisco, I had worked with small businesses, and there's a couple of different things I had worked on with the Jane Kim's office. And one of the most interesting things, and this I think came from David Campos, so I should credit him, is legacy businesses, right? Mm-hmm. There was a funding stream created and a recognition that there's a whole universe of businesses that have a special cultural meaning to the city of San Francisco.
Yeah, fair enough.
Businesses in Oakland.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm worried about them. Like, sometimes I will go across town somewhere just because I'm worried that they're going to close down. And I know I'm not the only one who does that. Right.
Yeah.
We still get our cakes from Taste of Denmark. Like, there's certain places that, have real historical value because they've just been around for so long. And I think that whether it's EIFD and some other financing structures, maybe it's even creating more programs, to support our, what I will call legacy businesses. I think that's what we need to do, and so, I'm on your show. I'm happy to talk to whoever,
because we're about to close out on this. We got to come back.
We already talked for 30 minutes. That's amazing.
We got to come back though. Okay. And we gotta, this is my second video. I don't want to make as many as I can.
Yeah.
Love the god doggone internet waves, whatever the hell you want to call them, what I call them.
Yeah.
Make this happen. All right. There is no excuse for this not happening. I mean, none.
I agree.
Bobbi, is there a website you guys have?
Yeah, we have a website. We have a couple websites. We have our nonprofit affordable housing website, which is todco.org. If you just go there, you'll see that it has our housing information. And then we also have our Build Affordable Faster website, which is, again, a pilot project. And that's buildaffordablefasterca.com. And actually, buildaffordablefasterca.com is a great website because it has a lot of our polls there. So we've done quite a few statewide polls. We actually did an Oakland poll last year. So we've been, oh, wow, I love those graphics. That's awesome, Zenny. So, it's a great place to also kind of get a sense of what folks are thinking. And that's also what got us on this road, is that, obviously we know homelessness and wildfire are going to always be the top issues for our folks, but small business concerns over small business grew like exponentially as a top priority for Oakland residents. Like, that's what our poll told us. And so that's really what got us on this thing, is that we realized that, that it wasn't just us anecdotally feeling or seeing it with the small businesses in our community. This is what Oakland voters were saying.
Folks,
yeah,
check this out. BuildAffordableFaster.com. Bobbi, you're coming back.
With pleasure. Thank you, Zenny.
Yeah, stick around the backstage. All right. And that ends the podcast, folks. Folks, subscribe to Zenny.